Good afternoon. My name is Chris Konetsky, and I'm the group publisher of Business Publications Corporation, which produces the Business Record and DSM Magazine. I want to welcome you to our annual Iowa Stops Hunger event presented by Hy-Vee. When we started Iowa Stops Hunger 3 years ago, our objective was to highlight food insecurity in Iowa, showcase the important work being done by individuals and organizations across the state, and most importantly, to help inspire action. We do this through regular coverage in all of our products. We have a special edition of the Business Record that came out in early August. We've had plenty of videos, a special magazine that is going to be inserted into Business Record this week and out to our DSM audience this week as well. A website, social media, and a corporate initiative challenge as well, all designed to help raise the awareness around what is an increasing problem. We started it during the pandemic. The issues and challenges have continued, and we're continuing to help make sure that we're highlighting the issues so that we can be working towards solutions. In just a moment, we're going to introduce you to our 4 hunger heroes whose work we think is worth highlighting so that perhaps others can be inspired to take action in their own way to help end hunger. I know you're all Zoom pros by now, but I'm pleased to tell you about some new auto captioning features that we have. So you should have an icon on the bottom of your screen, similar to where your camera and mute buttons are. The live transcript has already been enabled, so you can use this icon to view the full transcript on your sidebar. You can also use the chat feature today at the bottom of your screen to offer comments or your own insights. So please, if you would, we'd love to have you welcome our speakers today. Send them a big thank you for being here with us today. Share where you're from and why you're passionate about helping fight food insecurity in Iowa. And of course, if you're on social media, we'd love to use the hashtag Iowa Stops Hunger. I'm pleased now to introduce my co-moderator, Michael Moraine. He's the editor of DSM Magazine. Michael took over as editor of DSM at the beginning of the year, and he stepped right in to help plan a fantastic edition of the Iowa Stops Hunger magazine, and also to put together today's event and speakers, which is going to be out later this week. Michael, welcome.
Hello, and welcome, everyone. I'm really looking forward to this session. We titled it Hunger Heroes, and we don't toss around that term lightly. The 4 folks you're going to meet today are doing really, really great, creative, hard work, and their efforts and teams really have direct results on feeding people in big cities and small towns across the state. So I hope you'll be inspired by their stories and will be motivated to do what you can in your corner to help make more people comfortable and healthy and all of that good stuff that is a big part of our communities. So often when we report on stories, we always try our best to capture their stories in print, but today it's sort of like a pop-up book where you get to see and meet the people who are in the stories and hear them tell their stories in their own words. So I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate that you have joined us.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thanks for putting together a great group today. You'll be hearing from Michael in just a little bit. Before we get to our program today, the work that we're doing here wouldn't be possible without the support of our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, Hy-Vee, and our supporting sponsor, Mom's Meals. Before we hear from Hy-Vee, we're going to roll a video from Hy-Vee, which highlights just one of the ways that the company is working to help end hunger. Thanks to Hy-Vee, and I'm now proud to welcome Tina Potoff, who's the Senior Communications Manager at Hy-Vee. Quite the ambitious goal, and I know it's just one of the ways you all are working to help end hunger. Here to tell us a little bit more is Tina. Tina, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. And I am so grateful for all the work that all of our community partners are doing in this area. I think COVID definitely brought food insecurity to light. And while many people want to believe that the numbers are going down, the numbers are actually going up. So to have sessions like this is very, very important in our local community. Here at Hy-Vee, you just kind of saw a brief overview of one of the campaigns we have going on this year to have a lofty goal of trying to raise 100 million meals for those that are food insecure around our 8-state region, including right here in the Des Moines Metro and across Iowa. And what we've been able to do is through roundups at the register, as well as working with our suppliers and our partners, making our own personal donation, really being able to do a lot of outreach to hopefully make that goal by December 31st. If not, we're going to continue to strive for that into the months to come. But I'm happy to report, we were just able to announce on Friday, this past Friday, that our first installment of the checks that we are giving to these food banks totaled more than $2.2 million. And so really that meant roughly $500,000, $500,000 for food banks right here in central Iowa. So that goes a long way. Roughly $1 provides 10 meals when you donate it at Hy-Vee. And that money goes straight to the local food banks that are needing the support and the help more than ever before. The other thing, I kind of feel like I'm around like a chicken with my head cut off today, is we're actually taking that a little bit further. We have a team when it comes to disaster recovery. You may have seen some of the stories, but there's a lot of hunger not only here in Iowa, but across the entire nation, especially when disasters hit. So when Hurricane Idalia hit Florida, we actually have a crew that is down there right now that is working with the local food bank and also serving meals to those who are food insecure. 80,000 meals is what we're trying to aim for this week alone, with a team of about 27 Hy-Vee employees that are down there and working with disaster recovery efforts. So it comes in many ways, shapes, and forms. It can come in the form of job loss. It can come in the form of, people in between jobs, people that are hit by disasters. But the need is not going away. And so I'm very excited to be able to hear the stories of those that are kind of the boots on the ground, not only us here at Hy-Vee, but everyone else who's working very, very hard to help combat hunger.
Thanks so much, Tina, and I appreciate your support. And, honestly, the Hy-Vee, you've been here from the start of this and really helped shape it, and your influence in Hy-Vee, because you all are so close to this issue, have really helped shape how we've been able to come at this and thinking about ways to help raise awareness. So I appreciate your not only sponsorship, but your help and work helping craft this as we've moved forward and continue to find ways to elevate the conversation. So thank you so much.
Thanks. It's our pleasure.
And now we have a video message here from another key partner of ours, our premium supporting sponsor, Mom's Meals. Taking care of others is what they were a part of their own family. Mom's Meals serves the unique needs of their clients, providing accessible, healthy nutrition delivered to their door. And there we go. We're going to roll a quick video, and then we'll hear from our sponsor.
I was born 77 years ago, and this house really has a history to it because my mom and dad bought it when he came back from World War II, and I came here with them when I was 3 years old, so a lot of history here. And now I have a lot of issues walking and losing my balance and falling, and just there's so many things. But Mom's Meals is one of the wonderful parts of my program, because I am not able to do a lot of cooking and things. And if I didn't have this, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful for the way that these are provided. I tell people I have a very young mind, but my body won't cooperate with me. So I'm extremely grateful for Mom's Meals because I'm very arthritic and I can't hold on to things. So I can't chop anymore, and I love fresh everything. Mom's Meals provides me with such a wonderful variety, and I get to choose from a menu. I mean, this is incredible.
Well, thanks again to our premium supporting sponsor, Mom's Meals. I'm now pleased to introduce Paula Hopper. She's the Senior Director of Government Affairs and Advocacy at Mom's Meals. Paula, welcome.
Thank you so much. And I would like to say a special thank you to the Business Record, your publications, and to everyone that's joining us on this call for your continued commitment to eradicate hunger there in Iowa. For those of you guys who might not know, we do actually have a mom behind Mom's Meals, and her name is Barb Anderson. Over 20 years ago, she started Mom's Meals in her very own kitchen there in a small community in Iowa. And with the help of community-based organizations, many like you right now on the phone call, She was able to deliver home delivered meals across Iowa under our Aging and Disabilities Waiver. Fast forward that to 20 years today, and our commitment to our core values to improve health through better nutrition at home remains as steadfast as ever. As the nation's leading provider of medically tailored meals and refrigerated home delivered meals, we are proud to announce that today we are delivering over 1.2 million meals per week to individuals there across every zip code in Iowa and throughout the country. We could not have done this without our community-based organizations, our local food banks. So thank you for everything that you do for our individuals throughout the community. We are honored to be part of Iowa Stops Hunger, and we remain committed to elevating our community-based organizations as well as our food banks to ensure that you guys have the funding and support that you need to help everybody in Iowa that's facing food insecurity. And we know that with all of us working together to develop both practical and sustainable solutions, we can make a difference in everyday Iowans. So thank you for everything we do. And yesterday I was a part of a work session and I heard some of the innovative ideas that our panelists are going to come and discuss. And it is just amazing. And I would encourage everybody out there who thinks that they have an innovative idea, let's implement it and make a difference throughout the country, especially in helping our seniors and all of our vulnerable communities get the nutrition they need. Thanks.
Thank you, Paula. Appreciate it. And thanks again to Mom's Meals. I think your organization and what you all are doing, it's been really fascinating for me, and I know for a lot of our staff members as we've gone through this journey of learning about hunger, about how many multifaceted approaches there needs to be to help solve it. Oftentimes when we think about hunger, there's a stereotypical image in folks' mind about who is hungry. And of course, we know that that's not the truth. There's so many different folks from different backgrounds and different perspectives, ages, groups, go on down the line. And being able to address issues from a variety of aspects is really what is so key. So thank you for what you all are doing to help with a very specific part of that need that's there. And I know we're going to get to hear from our speakers here very soon on ways that they are helping in their own way. In addition to our presenting sponsor and premium supporting sponsors, we also want to thank our corporate challenge sponsors as well. The needs in this space continue to grow. In addition to Hy-Vee and Mom's Meals, I want to thank our corporate sponsors who are not only supporting this initiative to raise awareness, but are also taking action themselves. Their actions are going to be highlighted later this year in December, and later on in this program, we'll highlight a few of the ways that they are working and have been working to help solve this challenge. So I want to give a big thank you to Alliant Energy, Catholic Charities, DLL, Farmers Mutual, Hale, Humana, Come and Go, Molina Healthcare, NCMIC, Principal, Riley Resource Group, Nationwide, and Iowa Economic Development Authority as our corporate challenge sponsors. If you have an interest in learning how to participate and helping support the work that we're doing here, you can learn more at iowastopshunger.com/corporate challenge. And now I'm going to turn it over to Michael Moraine, our DSM editor, who put together today's group of speakers. He's going to guide the conversation from here. So Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chris. As I mentioned before, we are really looking forward to this discussion. So we will give each of the panelists a few minutes to just talk about their work. In the print issue that we are distributing now, the headline for it is 4 Hunger-Busting Innovators. And the connecting thread through all of their stories, these are folks who are doing their jobs and then figured out some way to expand their reach or some way to creatively solve a problem or figure out what they're already doing and then do a little bit more. And combined with their partners and their teams, they have really made a big impact for alleviating hunger here in central Iowa. And we will also hear from Gwen Simpson in Lamoni, in a town that looks much different than big city Des Moines. So these 4, as you can see on your screen, are Michelle Paulson, who is a letter carrier and a union member with the U.S. Postal Service, John Klein, a pastor with Zion Lutheran Church, Gwen Simpson, the executive director at the Lamoni Food Pantry, and circling back to Zuli Garcia, who has been plugged into the community by way of her position with the Des Moines Police Department, and she founded a nonprofit called Knock and Drop Iowa. So Zuli, let's start with you, and I think probably the easiest way to get into your story is to explain that unusual name for your nonprofit. How did that come about?
Knock and Drop Iowa started because of the pandemic. Working at the Des Moines Police Department, I was getting phone calls from families that they had money for bills and rent, but they didn't have money for feeding their families. So I started calling food pantries around and noticed that there was a gap and some barriers out there. And we decided that we would start a project with friends and volunteers. And we were knocking on people's doors and dropping food because of the pandemic to protect not just them, but ourselves. And then once we decided and we were seeing the need that was out there, listening to children that before we came to their household, they were eating their cereal with water, it really broke me. And I decided, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and do a culturally specific Latino food pantry to service the needs of others out there, because we need to bridge the gap and think outside the box.
Help us understand some of the positive benefits of creating a program that is culturally specific. I'm sure you have heard feedback from folks who really appreciate finding things, products on the shelves that they can't find elsewhere. And please share that story from your dad in California. I love that anecdote.
Yes. So my dad is retired in California, and my dad, is on a fixed income. He's on Social Security and his retired benefits, and he receives food from his local food pantry, but it's canned food and boxed food. No offense to that. Everyone has their own way of what you guys are used to eating, but we have to understand that not everyone is used to eating canned or boxed food. Not everyone is used to eating a soup from a can. So for us, that's kind of like a put me down, because we're going through really hard times and we have to go get the food that we're not used to eating at home. So we decided that we were going to do a culturally specific food. So we give like maseca. Anybody know what maseca is? Maseca makes tamales, tortillas, pupusas, and that's what we want to make sure people feel comfortable. When you come here, you're getting what you're used to eating at home. And my dad was like, I wish I could live in Iowa to receive the food that you give to your families on a weekly basis. And that just broke my heart, because, it's not that my dad needs it. It's just he sees the need that is out there for other families that are struggling. And it just broke me. And I just thought, we're doing something good to give back to our community.
Who are some of the organizations that you have teamed up with to expand your services?
So we have a lot of collaborations that we do. We have Food Bank of Iowa, Eat Greater Des Moines, REVA, Hispanic Federation out of New York City. I mean, if we just got Community Catalyst grant, and all these, collaborations and projects that we're working on, we're expanding so much more. It's not just your regular food pantry. Yes, that is an essential need, but we wrap other services around this essential need. So we are now into the health equity side of things. We want to make sure that the community understands the need of getting vaccinated, going to the doctor, knowing about diabetes, and so much more. Now we're also working we have early childhood development, Polk County Early Childhood Development, that allows us to give out coats to kids. After 2 years, we finally had a meeting with Des Moines Bike Collective, and we're going to give out 100 bikes. So, these huge collaborations are a big deal in our community, especially when there's a language barrier, gap barrier. Even with me, they come in and they want to make sure this is not going to affect them in the future. This is something that, they're just in need at that moment. And then once the mothers go back, we have single mothers, single fathers, they go back to work full time. They come to us and say, thank you. Thank you for being there when we needed you. We've got our full-time job back. Now we don't need to come back to the food pantry. Now I actually want to help you, how we can help other families.
I also appreciate that your service has become a model for other programs. Have you already started coaching other organizations to help other groups of people? When we spoke earlier this summer, you mentioned Afghan refugees and Lutheran services in Iowa. Are those partnerships already happening?
Yes, so we actually service Des Moines refugee, the Afghan families. once a month, because obviously we need to understand the food that they're used to. It's not always available. So whenever I see something that's available that they like, I'm in connection with Allison, which is the executive director at Des Moines Refugee. And I'm always asking her, hey, I have this. Is this something that they'll eat? Yes. So I'm even learning myself, and then we'll order something for them. And then that is delivered to specific families. For example, we got a bunch of African eggplants yesterday, and I got some amazing pictures today that this lady was just amazed that she was able to eat them. We didn't know how to cook them, but she's eating it like a fruit, and we're like, oh, really? So, you learn, and I love trying different cuisines. It's not just about, Salvadorian Mexican food. It's about Asian food, Afghan food, all kinds of different cultures. And we need to really think outside the box for others.
Thank you, Zuli. Thank you so much just for your examples. As a community, we are lucky to have you in the position you are to help reach different pockets of the community that some of the traditional nonprofits and food banks may not be able to reach. So thank you. I want to switch gears. We'll move on to Pastor John Klein with Zion Lutheran Church, who is another person who is deeply plugged into the community and has his pulse on different pockets of town and different groups of people who whose needs change from year to year. John, welcome, and tell us a little bit, how long have you been with Zion Lutheran Church? You may have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Hey, now I'm unmuted. Thank you.
Yep.
How long? 18 years I've been here. And yes, we've seen an awful lot of change.
That is a lot of church potlucks, but I know you have gone way beyond that. How did you start nudging the congregation to reach beyond the walls of your church building?
Right. Well, about 13 years ago, we began to pray for a vision from God that would help us help him do what he wanted to do in this community. And so the vision that we received was that we were to be the banquet. Luke 14, if you're a Bible scholar. And in Luke 14, Jesus says, when you give a banquet, don't invite your friends, your neighbors, your family. Instead, invite the poor, the lame, the blind, the widows, the crippled, all the usual Jesus suspects. And so the vision that we were given was to go to a certain apartment complex here in the neighborhood and to basically put on a banquet. And that is what we did. And we went back each month, and it has really changed who we are. And a big part of a banquet, of course, is what you're going to eat. And during that original time, we brought fried chicken and all the fixings and, dessert and things. And so food started to become a major part of everything that we did. And I would say there are very few activities we do in the community or even within the church that don't involve some kind of eating together. And so we really do break bread together. When we meet people, we eat together. It's how we begin relationships. And, this is something that seems to go well, especially when working with kids and teenagers as well, because they're always hungry. And so if we do like a boys' Bible study, for instance, there's going to be cooking involved. And now the boys want to know how to cook. And then the question is, well, what shall we cook? What kind of ingredients are those? Where do we appropriate those? And how do we put them all together? And so, food is a big deal.
When we spoke earlier this summer, I think you were either on your way to the grocery store or just back from the grocery store, and you were describing the challenges of keeping your own fridge stocked when you host groups of marauding teenagers who are comfortable enough to raid your fridge for ice cream or whatever, but you've taken this into your own home.
Well, and that's both at church and at home. So if you come to my house for Bible study, and then you'll help yourself to whatever you find in the fridge besides whatever it is that's prepared. And then I just have a really hard time. Had to put new locks on the kitchen even, which sounds crazy, but just because once we feed people, once we bring in the ingredients, all that kind of stuff, whatever's left over is fair game. And so people will just wander in and help themselves. And I mean, that's for people who are comfortable being in the church, but that's also for people who drop by and say, my family's hungry, I don't have anything, what have you got? And so then, you know, nothing goes to waste.
When you described that first visit, when you served a feast to the apartment complex, you said that some people were a little reluctant. They weren't quite sure what was going on, but it was the kids that made the connection first. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's very true. And like Zulu was saying, working cross-culturally can be a little bit tricky. And, you know, there's always an initial distrust. I think food helps to kind of level the playing field because we all like to eat. And so the question just is, what can we eat together? And there are certain foods that will cross cultural lines. There's the opportunity to share the different foods, your recipes, my recipes. This is how I do chicken. This is how you do chicken, or pork, or maybe you don't do pork. So then, you know, there's beef or something, or, you know, how do you do the vegetables and so on. It leads to a whole conversation. And it turns out that everybody likes to share their food. We're a church that worships in 3 different languages, and we pray in probably 12 or 13 languages. And so everybody's got a recipe from home that they want to share. But when you're first meeting with people, yeah, food helps to break down the barriers. You know, food is an avenue to discussion. It's an avenue to building further relationships. It kind of, you know, opens some doors and let God work. And so, yeah, it's important stuff.
You also mentioned that there's a difference or a mindset switch where you involve food, or you start with food, even in activities that aren't really about food. So that way people don't have to ask. That they just know, they understand that if they come to an activity associated with your church, they're going to get a meal, which I think, I imagine changes the dynamic for the recipients and the givers alike.
Yeah, we assume hunger, and especially with kids, teenagers, but even with adults. So if you come to something, let's say something normal, every church, Sunday school, our Sunday school begins with a meal because we assume that everybody's going to be hungry. And, you know, yeah, it's true. And, you know, it helps us because I think, you know, cross-culturally speaking, different people groups have different attitudes about food. You know, here in the U.S., we're very comfortable with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Those are the 3 greatest sounds, right? Lunch is served, breakfast is served, dinner is served. But for other cultures, you know, maybe they won't eat till midday, maybe they won't eat till evening, maybe there's 1 meal a day, maybe there's a kind of an expectation of 2, maybe the rice is on and you just help yourself if you're hungry before mama cooks later on. And so, you know, the kids, they're accustomed to the American way of thinking about food at school, they're fed regularly and so on. And so, you know, we just have to continue that so that they aren't hungry. And they can, you know, they can learn, they can interact, and they feel safe, secured, and loved.
Don, thank you very much. We appreciate your work and the work of your congregation. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Let's move on to Michelle Paulson, who is another person who is literally out in the community. She sees a lot of the community every single day as a postal carrier. Michelle, tell us a little bit about your region, your territory, and also your involvement with Stamp Out Hunger.
So I'm a letter carrier. I deliver in the Clive area. Our branch, NALC branch 352, we cover the Des Moines and all the surrounding areas and a lot of the small towns around central Iowa. I joined the Postal Service in 2016. And a year later, I signed up to be the local food drive coordinator for Stamp Out Hunger. So Stamp Out Hunger is the food drive that's held on the 2nd Saturday in May. It's a nationwide food drive, so all the letter carriers across the country go out and collect bags of food while they're delivering the mail, and all of those donations go to their local food bank, so that all that food that they collect stays in their community. So that was really something really important to me. Food insecurity was something I struggled with as a kid. So seeing something like that letter carrier is doing, carrying these giant bags of groceries and filling up their mail trucks, was something I really wanted to be a part of. So I started doing that, and I was just trying to find ways so we can collect more food. We partner with DMARC. They get all the food that we collect here in the Des Moines area, and finding simple ways of, getting plastic bags to put in the mailboxes to remind people along with those cards. And then I'm also a Cub Master and Scout Masters with the Boy Scouts of America. So I enlisted the help of our Boy Scouts to be out in front of some Hy-Vee locations, collecting food and donations on that Saturday, so that we could get more for DMARC in our community.
I feel like between the federal government and Boy Scouts, you have a lot of people power at your disposal. So don't underestimate the Boy Scouts to get things done. How has that program grown under your leadership? And is it something that postal carriers have a hard job. You have to carry lots of stuff anyway. Is it something that your coworkers look forward to, or do they sort of grumble about it?
You get a little bit of both. Some like to, complain about the extra food, but when you see as your truck gets empty of mail and gets filled up with food, it gives you that good feeling to know how much you're helping. I know a lot of carriers that just absolutely enjoy it. We take pictures of them filling up buckets and buckets and buckets of food that get picked up, and we all know that with the pandemic, everyone is struggling. And so I think more carriers than not really do enjoy seeing all that food we collect. I take a big picture at the end of every year for the food drive of the total food that we collect. And it is always amazing just to see how much a few letter carriers out there can collect in a day.
I want to close your portion just with one section, because it's hard to wrap your numbers around all of the cans and the boxes, and just when you get to see the mountain of food. But here's the statistic from the article. Here in Central Iowa, your team and your efforts have collected about 40,000 food items every year. Do you see that? Does that continue to grow each year?
It has. So I will say we dropped significantly with the pandemic. So we were not able to do Stamp Out Hunger food drive for 2020 and 2021. So before the pandemic, I think our highest number was we had collected around 90,000 pounds of food in the one day. So it's the one day food drive. It is just that Saturday. The first year, 2022, after the pandemic, we were right around 30,000 pounds of food. And this last year, we were just at 40,000 pounds of food. So we're bringing it back. It was really hard to get people back in the swing. Not seeing that those 2 years, but we're slowly trying to get back up to those numbers.
All right. Thank you. I see other panelists nodding in a way that they recognize what 30,000 pounds of food might look like. My scale is much smaller. I can picture a pound of hamburger at the grocery store. But 30,000 or 40,000 pounds of food is a lot of meals. So thank you for your work.
If you think about the big watermelon bins at the grocery store that you see on the pallets, those hold about 1,000 pounds of food.
That's a lot of food. That's a whole lot of watermelons and a whole bunch of other stuff that is putting food on the table. Thank you very much. I want to turn now to Gwen Simpson, and I'm eager to hear from her, because in Lamoni, the landscape looks a lot different than in Des Moines. It looks different than downtown Des Moines or Clive, but there's so many communities in Iowa who could use a Gwen Simpson because she has figured out how to expand a much smaller food bank in a way that serves the particular needs of that community. So Gwen, take us back to the beginning of how you started with the Lamoni Food Pantry and how it has grown with your help.
13 years ago, I was retiring, and I went to a Ministerial Alliance meeting, and at that time, the pantry in Lamoni was run by the Ministerial Alliance. Different churches would house the pantry. congregations would donate food, and so that's how they stocked their shelves. And the pastors would run it, and they'd get a phone call from a person in town that needed food. And so what they would do is they would set up a time, and that person would come. At that time, the pastor was the head of the pantry. And every 2 or 3 years, they would think, okay, I've done enough. I need a break, and it would go for another church. They wanted to give that up, and I happened to transition in with some free time. And at that time, we had 5 to 6 people calling in a month wanting food. There was no budget because the food came from the congregation. There were no volunteers. It was located in 3 cupboards of a church. And I was fortunate to be connected to the Minister Alliance, but at that transition, the Methodist Church took over and let it be housed in their kitchen. And they invited me to participate with them in feeding people in the community. So, we invited the community through communication, through churches, through the schools, whatever way we could find. And word of mouth for pantry people, at least for me, in our area, because it's small, is word of mouth, and so over the last 13 years, last month we served 83 families, which represents 225 people. Now, we're a very small rural community, just in southern central Iowa. We're in one of the poorest counties in Iowa, and yet we only serve 2 of the cities in that poor county. Last year, we spent $35,000 on supplemental food handout, and also 3 other programs that have since become under our umbrella. We have 60 volunteers, so it's really a community effort. They've joined us. And then fantastic for us, 2 years ago, we decided we needed to get out of the basement of the Methodist Church because of all those stairs. When you take food down to bring it in, it has to go up those stairs. And a lot of our volunteers were older. So we raised $230,000. We bought a building on Main Street coming into Lamoni, which was very public. And we renovated that, and we opened our doors in that new site last May, a year ago, May. And we have a handicap accessible building it's visual when people come into town. So people that want to donate see us, and people that need us see us. So it's been an exciting journey. It's been a challenging journey, but it's been a teamwork.
Mm-hmm. I think your organization, like the other projects, benefits so much from visibility. So people know that it's there and they can donate either goods or services or talent, and people know that it's there so they can make use of it if they need it. I think visibility is a common theme on all of these projects. I also really appreciate your initiative to involve younger people, youth. Will you tell us a little bit about the youth committee or the youth council? Because I think it's an idea that other organizations can and should replicate.
We were having trouble getting some volunteers, especially in the pandemic. A lot of our older volunteers really became afraid, and we never closed our doors. We changed our procedure, but we needed some people that were willing to walk those steps, because we were in the basement of the Methodist Church at that time. So we got high school kids to do that for us. And that opened up a new thought process for me. It's like, wait a minute, we're planting seeds for future volunteers, investing in their community. And I was wanting somebody on my board to take over that was interested in young people and form a youth council. And I found someone just this last year who was willing to do that. Obviously, she's a busy person. She had multiple other jobs. And I said, look, what I want from you is I want this to be kid driven, this youth council to be driven by the kids. And I gave her a few names. She had a few of her own. And I said, and the ideas are theirs. And she said, are you are you going to micromanage me? And I said, nope, I don't have enough time to micromanage you. You're going to handle this on your own. So they have started meeting over this summer, and she has been stunned. She told me the other day, she just steps back and she lets them come up with all the ideas. They are not fundraisers for us. I said, no, you're not going to raise funds. We don't need you for that. We want you to be involved in the community, to addressing needs of the community. And they just recently this summer had a bake sale, lemonade drive. People that were coming to the park anyway for an activity purchased those items. They raised enough money that they could buy snacks for preschool kids, because preschool kids get snacks every day. And in our community, that means 40 little kids. And so they purchased them for a month. They also decided that in the junior high and high school, they would have a 3-tiered cart where they would put supplies like pencils, pens, that if kids ran out of those things, they had a resource there. They could go, no questions asked, they could go to the cart, pick that up. On the bottom shelf of that cart, and this was all their idea, they put feminine products, and which is, you know, vital, especially at that time in students' life. And so they can come and pick up those items. They don't have to go to a nurse to ask, they don't have to go to the principal's office. And she's so excited about what they are, so excited, and she's excited about, she's just facilitating their energy and directing it forward. And she's hopeful that their energy, she's just made up a great flyer that we're going to get more kids on that council and involved.
I think that's such a great idea to enlist younger folks, not just for grunt work and fundraising, but to empower them to come up with some ideas and open their eyes to help see what the needs are in the community, and then empower them to figure out how to solve those problems. I think it's a great solution. So thank you all. We're not done yet. If you have any questions for the panelists or comments, feel free to add your 2 cents in the chat. We will do our best to scoop through some of those questions before we round out the hour. But at this time, I want to just highlight a few of the other stories in this recent edition. I'm holding it up here, and I think we have a slide for it. Thank you, Sherry. This is what the new annual edition of Iowa Stops Hunger looks like. You can read the stories of each of these 4 panelists in this new issue, but I want to just draw your attention to a few of the other stories in this special issue. The first one that I want to point out is about 2 really, really compelling stories from our reporter, Michael Crum, on the Business Record desk. Emily Kestel, who visited the town of Jewell and the town of Malvern, way down in southeast Iowa. And she really painted a portrait of what a grocery store can mean to small towns. For a lot of towns, it's really the hub of the community, and it serves the community in so many other ways than just putting food on the table. She also did some research with the University of Northern Iowa to really map out where some of the food deserts are across the state, to see where people have trouble accessing fresh fruits and vegetables and the whole array of products that you can get at a big Hy-Vee, but you may not be able to get at a convenience store. So it's a really in-depth story that shows how vital those grocery stores are for especially smaller communities. Another story, and this is the one from Michael Crum on the Business Record. He did a really compelling in-depth portrait about a U.S. Navy veteran who is facing food insecurity. He has done all the right things in his life and he has worked hard. But through this profile, you can understand a little bit better how hard it is to stretch those SNAP dollars and those limited incomes, to stretch that over the course of a month. So you get to meet this guy and just kind of take a glimpse at what his life is like here in Des Moines as someone who makes use of various food banks around town. The third story that I want to point out just briefly is a story down in Fairfield. Emily Kestel reported this story, and she visited a couple in Fairfield who is thinking about the long-term future of their land. They have a bunch of acres outside of town, and they are working with the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust to ensure a future for that land that helps it produce food for Iowans. Obviously, agriculture is a huge industry in our state, and Iowans are proud of feeding the world. But as global factors have shifted, much less of Iowa land is used to feed Iowans. So this couple and the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust are working to figure out how to use this world famous Iowa land to help feed people who are right here. So those are just a few of the stories that you will see in the current issue of Iowa Stops Hunger. You can also tap into those online at, I think it's iowastopshunger.com. It's close to that. If you Google it, you'll get right there. So
thanks so much, Michael.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
In addition to the stories that are in the magazine, we wanted to highlight a couple of the things that our corporate partners have done as well. We, as part of the Iowa Corporate Challenge, Iowa Stops Hunger Corporate Challenge, we've asked our participants to demonstrate what they are doing to help end hunger as well. So I thought I'd highlight a few of the ways that a few of our folks are doing that. One of those partners is Alliant Energy, who has worked to end hunger by raising funds through a signature event called Drive Out Hunger. Each fall, Alliant invites its company's business partners from across the country to participate in a golf event with all the proceeds directed to the 7 Feeding America Iowa food banks. And in the past 16 years, the organization has raised over $5.5 million and provided over 18.5 million meals to those in need, all thanks to a little bit of golf. Another way, of course, to help, we always talk about giving funds, giving food, and giving time. The first was funds. This is through giving food, right? Since 2018, Farmers Mutual Hale employees and retirees have packaged over 191,000 meals at an annual on-site meals for the Heartland packaging event. And through its partnership with the Iowa's Healthy State Initiative Double Up Food Bucks program, they've doubled the value of federal supplemental nutrition assistance program, but in a SNAP benefits spent at participating farmers markets and grocery stores in Iowa. So again, getting fresh food into the hands of folks as well. And of course, giving time. In 2022, nationwide, associates volunteered at the Food Bank of Iowa on the second Tuesday of every month. More than 150 associates volunteered at the food bank and donated more than 400 hours of service. They do have a bit of fun over there too. If you run into anybody from Nationwide, make sure to ask them about the Golden Gobbler. Apparently, that's the esteemed traveling trophy that's part of their leadership team's efforts to encourage associates to donate to food banks during their annual turkey drive. So a number of different ways that organizations can get involved in helping spur people into action here. As you can see, there's so many different ways that companies can get involved. And these are just a few of the examples of the ways that we can do that. If you have interest in showcasing your good work, you can again learn more at iowastopshunger.com/corporate challenge. Michael, back over to you for a few final questions for our panelists.
Thank you. And thanks for those of you who have posted some questions in the chat. One question, people are interested in how they can help the organizations that you, the panelists, have mentioned. If you go to iowastopshunger.com, you can link to the stories about each of these panelists, and they include websites to their organizations. There's also a roundup, a statewide roundup of just a few of the organizations that need help, all kinds of different kinds of help, time and talent and resources. That's also included in the issue. So there's no shortage of opportunities and ideas to help. And I'm sure the people leading these teams would love to hear from you. One question, and we can go around the virtual table here in the order that we shared earlier. But here's one question for all of you. How would you like to see your organization and your efforts grow in the next few years? Here's your chance to make a case for your wish list. What kinds of help do you need? And how would you like to see your efforts expand over the next few years? Zuli, you're up.
So currently we are working on hopefully purchasing a van for a mobile food pantry. That is one way that we would love to expand our services, because we know we have families from, excuse me, example, Humboldt, Iowa, that comes down and receives food. And that's one way that we would love to grow, to be able to service more families just outside of the Des Moines and metro area with more culturally specific foods.
All right, thank you. John, what about you?
Okay. I mean, I'd like it to shrink. I mean, I'd like it not to, there not to be, hungry people. I think, two things that I think would be advantageous. One is, I think, more community conversation. And by that, I mean, there are so many things that we can talk about as a community. I think that food being a way of bringing people together to have those discussions over dinner. And so that's one thing I'd like to do, is to combine food and conversations, getting people with even very disparate views about many different subjects to be able to sit down together, to share the meal together, and to discuss things in a very civilized kind of fashion. I think that would be really important. Further, I think with what Zuli said, especially, it's not just about food, it's about the kinds of food that people need. And so if there were a way to bring together the various organizations, the providers, the distributors, just to get everybody around the table and to say, how is it that we can serve the different communities within our larger community with food that they will accept and be thankful for, so that we can, not send Zuli's example about the soup. I mean, that hits very close to home. And so we've tried to get our folks, when they receive something from the food pantry and they don't want it, bring it back here to the church. We'll put it out in the pantry and get it to somebody else, who needs that. And so trying to match the audience with the products that we have.
John, I don't know if you could see it, but Zuli was quietly applauding you. And I know from my interview with Gwen that she hates pickled beets. So that was part of her motivation. When she saw somebody donate beets, she was like, oh, we got to do something about this.
Yeah, right.
So there are all kinds of tastes for sure.
Absolutely.
Michelle, how would you like to see your project grow in the next few years?
One of the big things we've struggled with since the pandemic is getting the plastic grocery bags for the carriers to hand out, and all those reminders. I work very hard with social media, with news networks to get the word out, and I still meet people every day that have never heard of Stamp Out Hunger, even though it's been going on for 30 plus years. So that's a big struggle for us, is getting the plastic bags, having enough. We've switched partners to get them, and we haven't been able to get the printed ones, which always help. So getting volunteers. I would love to get more volunteers at the grocery stores other than just Boy Scouts. I would love to get corporations that want to do their own Stamp Out Hunger for us to pick up those stuff on Saturday or even the Friday before. And I would just like to fill every mail truck in the Des Moines area with food and have us overflow the pantries at DMARC. That would be amazing.
It's good to think big. That's great. And John, you're right. There are definitely two different metrics. You want to collect more food, but you also want the need to go down. So there are different ways to measure what success looks like. Gwen, how about you?
I do hate beets, so please, I don't want it in a sack of food and have want me to be thankful for that. I think there needs to be a systemic change, and we saw some of that. The pandemic was, we would all admit, changed our lives, and in many ways was so negative. But what we saw, or what I saw in the rural community, was there was more government support. There were more meals free at the school. Food stamp SNAP benefits went up. Child support payments went up. And there was some relief in our group of people, because they were getting support that they had not had for years. And quite frankly, they didn't use our programs quite as much. Okay, pandemic gets under control and all that stuff is being pulled back. SNAP benefits, we just are seeing more guidelines put to rules to what people can get. We don't need to put more rules to hinder. I believe we need to relax some rules and say, you know what, we're all in this together. And when people in poverty or that are experiencing food insecurity are benefiting, then we all are benefiting and we're better off as a community. We are a group, we are interdependent. And so we've got some opportunities before us.
Mm-hmm. I think when we think about hunger, it is such an obviously huge problem that has been going on for thousands of years, and there are literally millions of people who are hungry. So it's a daunting challenge that nobody else has solved. So I appreciate all of your courage and willingness to keep working at it and to make progress in your own realms of influence, your own spheres of influence, where you see the results and you break it down into sort of doable tasks. So I appreciate your creativity to just keep chipping away at what is a really daunting challenge. So thank you all. We have, as we're rounding out the hour, we have just a few more announcements from Chris, but I do encourage all of you to pick up a copy of the latest issue. It has more details about the stories from each of the folks you heard from today, plus some others that are really worth your time. So thank you all for joining us.
And thank you, Michael, for helping moderate today and guiding the panel through some great questions so we could explore and learn a little bit more from each of them. Again, we provided a number of links in the chat that hopefully you can use to help share and spread the word. As you can see, these things are the types of ideas that can help spark a million other ideas for folks to be able to engage with as well. If you're inspired to fight hunger and would like to participate in the Iowa Stops Hunger Challenge, we've included, of course, the link to join the corporate challenge. We'd love to have you on board as part of that to help us continue to power this discussion. Also want to share a couple upcoming events with you as well, because we'd love to have you join us both in person and digitally at a few things that are coming up. On September 14th, we have our LGBTQ Awards. We have our Envision Iowa Think Tank series. That is a virtual event on September 21st, where we're talking about ways to help strengthen the community. We're going to be talking about infrastructure as part of that. Then on September 28th, we have our 90 Ideas in 90 Minutes, always a fantastic event where we're able to feature some great ways that individuals and businesses are working to help do business a little bit better. And those are some fantastic ideas, again, for you to be able to take into your business and life as well. And then on October 4th, we have our Envision Iowa main event that is going to be in person, where we're going to be talking through our Baton Global Economic Outlook Survey, which is going to show a little bit of the direction of what folks across the state think about our economic climate. I want to again thank our speakers, not just for participating today, but most importantly for the work that you are doing as leaders to help address food insecurity here in our state. Your work is much appreciated, and I know the same goes to all the nonprofits across our community that are working hard as well, and the corporations and individuals as well that are doing everything they can to help with this cause. And of course, this work wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. So again, a big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Hy-Vee, and our premium supporting sponsor, Mom's Meals, for their amazing partnership and support as we continue to lift this topic up. And last but not least, thanks again to each of you who joined today. I hope you came away with some great information and ideas to be inspired. Make sure to tune in as we continue to go forward and stay up to date with us. If you have story ideas, if you know of great folks that we should be featuring in future magazines and future coverage, please feel free to reach out to me or Michael, and we'll be happy to talk with you about how we can do that. Thanks again for all you do to help fight hunger and continue the fight. Thank you.